but a lot of lines of emmer. Why? Just as Elizabeth said, North Dakota has been the heart of emmer production. Our forefathers, when they came here, you know, they brought a lot, they hid a lot of that seed in their socks, and they started growing it. It's because of what they knew back at home, the German Russians. And they did well. It was an excellent livestock feed. Part of the collection here that we have at the research center is seed that I collected from farmers as they still had remnant seed on their farm. Particularly, a lot of them were from different areas of the country, but like in areas like Wishick and stuff like that. Actually, McIntosh County has been dubbed way back in the early 1900s by the government when they were doing studies as one of the best places to grow emmer. That is why we have emmer, and as Elizabeth's right, emmer does much better. Now, I didn't mention this, and it also is, it shows you something about with Mike's oats over there. We did wait for rain here. Finally did get some 1 week ago. When I came out here Tuesday morning 1 week ago to do the organic inspection, my heart was sad. Most of all these grains, particularly the seeding rate trials, which were seeded slightly earlier than this, the stage was so important, and the oats, it was flat, but it came back up. 70-mile-an-hour winds with that 70 hundredths of rain. But that is the biggest thing, probably the biggest problem that emmer has, no matter where we move, even to organic farms. At first I thought I was okay in organic farms because we didn't have this big lush nitrogen. Either we're doing something right out here or whatever, but we are starting, lodging is the worst problem. But now as we look down in here, you'll see some different types. And what we might want to do is in some of these high-yielding environments is not grow the emmers that we're growing out here in North Dakota, but grow some of the shorter emmers that come from India. They're earlier maturing, they may not lodge. That might be what we need to do in these high-yielding environments. But as we look at that again, you can see I did label a couple of them. TM23, there is no einkorn at this point in time. Everybody was looking for it. Culls went rampant this winter. Now we don't know, is it a fad because there's no seed yet, or is it that much better? We don't know. But everybody's looking for einkorn. Everybody wants einkorn. And there's less seed of that. TM23 is a line that some farmers have now that it's been increased. Hopefully there'll be some seed. But otherwise, most of these are just some land races or plant introduction centers that we've increased that kind of come from around the world. Now emmer is a whole new story though. Basically we labeled 3 varieties here. Lucille, which wasn't bred, but was released by Montana State University a number of years ago. Again, they went through the plant introduction center seeds, picked out the best one, and increased it. We'll touch on, Frank Kutka will touch on that a little bit later at the end of the tour to show you the same process we're doing right now again. But Lucille, Yellowstone, out in Montana did this about 25 years ago. And there are some farmers in North Dakota. Blaine Smalls is a Lucille grower. Matter of fact, it's probably one of the very few farmers that has a class of registered seed anymore because Montana isn't even backing that variety anymore. They're not producing any grade of seed of it. So Lucille has been the only variety. Now North Dakota Common, you heard Elizabeth mention about that. That's basically a land race through the selection. A land race just means farmers saved seed. And they brought it from their home country, they kept planting it, they kept planting it, they kept planting it. North Dakota Common was the one that when we screened a lot of these that did the best, and that was the one that the farmers then, such as Elizabeth mentioned, Lewis, increased and stuff and provided seed out to the farmers. Another variety that you may find some seed of is Vernal. So now when we talk, basically, when we look at these 3 crops, there are really no plant breeding going on anyplace. University of Saskatchewan, Pierre Huckle up in Saskatoon, I think it is, up in the north there is a program where he's looking at trying to develop some lines. He has developed a line of spring spelt down there. It's not labeled, called CDC Zorba. But they are looking at trying to develop a line of einkorn and emmer. But so it's just, but otherwise, after that, even in Europe and other places, there are really no breeding programs. There is a breeder in Germany doing biodynamic breeding in einkorn. So essentially what we're dealing with is remnant seeds. And these are seeds that, as Elizabeth said, are like 10,000 years old. I mean, so, the improvement has been made by the farmer, so selection or planting. But basically there's a lot of interest, but not a lot of variety development. So our seed is a very big commodity. It's important seed development. Maybe just a couple things just to hit on, which I think have been interesting that I learned this winter. As I mentioned, now when I say this, they aren't breeding the genes on it. But I read a study in Australia. The Australians in einkorn have found a gene, and I forget the name of the gene, the plant breeder Frank would know, but that's regardless now, because maybe you won't remember it either. But they found a gene that they pulled out and put into Durham that gave them salt tolerance. So they were able to get 25% yield increases in the salts where nothing would grow anymore with durum. They took that gene and put it in the durum. But then there was no yield drag on the good ground, which is a common problem. When you take a gene for a certain trait, it doesn't work across all everything. And I also read a report that was sent to us via the listserv and the people involved in the project Elizabeth was talking about. How many people know what UG99 is? You've heard of that, okay? Okay, they have found a gene, maybe others too, but they have found a gene in einkorn that resists this. If UG99 at this point in time ever jumped, that's a year away, they found it in 1999, it's stem rust. Stem rust is what plagues us immensely. If that race of rust ever got here, all the spring wheat in the northern places we know it would be wiped out, just like in the 30s and 40s when you read about the red clouds of dust and stuff like that. And by the way, we know stem rust has been the worst disease ever to plague wheat on the face of the planet. Biblical everything when they talk about it, it's stem rust. Where did we get resistance from stem rust? Does anybody know? For our wheats, because we don't think about it. We're all young here, so we don't remember stem rust. It came out of emmer. To find that resistance, the disease that plagued us came out of this. So whether these crops are useful, as Elizabeth talked about, or whether they're useful to help in plant breeding for new races of rust and stuff, they are very valuable. Quickly, what we've been evaluating these for a number of years. What do we get for yields? We don't have the database with einkorn like we have emmer, but einkorn, and basically everything we've been doing has been organic, so we don't have the conventional comparisons. But einkorn, I would feel pretty confident to say I'm probably in the plot's been running maybe in that 15 to 1,600 pound range. Emmer's slightly higher. If I look at the long term, we might be doing 1,800 pounds or so. And I think some of these yields, when I have had studies in farmers' fields or in farmers that had the emmer in the same year, we were very comparable. I know in one year when I had emmer in Lewis's farm, his field went about 2,000 pounds. The plots went about 2,000 pounds. Matt Loken, another farmer that was growing that same thing happened. And I think Blaine's yields are pretty much similar. So we're seeing the same thing. What I like about some of these crops, particularly emmer, is as Elizabeth said, they're tough. Weed competition, everything, they, not to make poor analogies, but they seem more adapted to in an environment that isn't spoon-fed a lot of nitrogen and stuff like that. So in other words, they seem very adapted to the organic environments. And so these are what, everybody calls them everything these days, and I don't know what to do with it, so I'm sticking with ancient grains. I'm sticking with, when we say ancient grains, it's emmer, einkorn, and spelt because they're the oldest. When we talk heritage wheats, I'm going to go with wheats that are, varieties that are slightly older. The most common definition some people like to stick with is pre-1950 varieties. What happened in 1950? We drastically changed our agricultural program and our breeding programs. We were breeding varieties in the environment of intended use, meaning high nitrogen fertilizers, using herbicides, so the classification then, so some people, maybe anecdotal and stuff, they have a belief that some of these older varieties may be more adapted to these organic environments because they were bred in that intention, and they may have a better nutritional quality. That's up for dispute at this point in time, but we also know there's sure a lot of press and controversy right now on wheat. Whatever that is, I don't know. I'm an agronomist, or I'm a farmer agronomist, whatever, but I think there's a lot of nutritional things to be asked on that. And I think that may be leading to some of the popularity. One other thing I just want to touch on quick, I think I'm scanning it. No, we do have one emmer. Or one in the emmer trial, we did put Kamut. Has anybody ever heard of Kamut? It's slightly different than emmer. That's Bob Quinn out there in Montana. We actually need to model him. He did a lot of nutritional work, and he took this crop that no one was raising and did phenomenal work with it. And he was speaking at our conference this winter, and actually he's selling a lot of it into Europe, and it has to do with some of the the energy and like the runners and stuff like that. They like it much better than other pasta. So a lot of these crops can be used for many different things, from breads to pastas. Maybe the last thing I'll just touch on so you help you understand it. Einkorn is the oldest, as Elizabeth said. It's up for the most numbers. I used 12,000 years ago. It shows up about the same time man first started farming. Emmer is about 10. Spelt is about 5. and free thrashing wheat as we know it maybe about 3. So if you think about that, that's kind of chronological how they came about. Also genetically, this is a very simple set of chromosomes.